Hello boys and girls, welcome to BenchART. I'm for Classic, and today what I do have in it is Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD Remastered, a game developed by Asus, and I believe it was ported by EDL, and they are using a Unity engine. So for the settings, I'm using my native resolution 768p, and I'm using median settings. This is my recommended way to play the game, but also I decided to try the game with multiple different settings. So going on with maximum settings at 768p, your entire experience will be under 30 frames per second, and because of that same reason I can't recommend. Playing at median settings with 768p, which is my favorite way of playing, delivers a 30 frames per second experience, but during the combats you can expect a drop here and there when special effects happen, or every time you hit an opponent. That is kind of a flashy thing. The frame rate just drops a little bit in there, but I don't see an issue for that. I mean, this is a turn-based game, so you are not going to lose anything just because the frame rate decides to drop at those key moments. And also at 720p using the bow settings, which looks horrible. The game, it is just playable at 30 frames per second with minimal drops. The drops just happen when you transaction from one area to another, or when you trigger a conversation. There are always some minor drops that does happen in this game. So the game, it is locked to 30 frames per second, so you're not going to get more than that anyway. But in my opinion, the median settings, it is the best option, because, I mean, this game doesn't offer too much graphical options, so you just pretty much have shadows on or off, and the shadows are just for pretty much the characters. Also, you have an option for resolution scaling, which is what impacts the most performance, and that's pretty much about it. Then you have resolution and VSync, and that's it. That's your graphical options for this game specifically. So what happens when you change the graphics from maximum settings to median settings? The only thing that does really get affected, it's the resolution scaling. So despite I'm using 760p resolution, in the reality, the median settings, what it does, it is to reduce the internal resolution scaling to something lower. I'm not really sure what resolution it is, but all I can say is that if you play at low, the resolution scaling gets decreased even further than the median, and it disables the character shadows. I don't miss the character shadows by any means when you put the game on low. The issue with the low settings is the resolution scaling on low. It is really, really low, and so the game looks very pixelated. So for that same reason, that's the reason behind why I decided to go with 768p and using median settings, and have to have those drops under 30 when the attacks happen, than playing at 720p low settings. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the game, shall we? First of all, this game, it is capped to 30 frames per second. Alright, so even with VSync off, you can try everything that you want. The game, it is capped to 30 frames per second. You can't have more than that. This is completely outrageous for a PC game. For me, it's not really a big deal. I mean, cutscenes, they are fine at 30 frames per second. They look more cinematic. And even this turn-based combat at 30 frames per second, it is not a big deal. Although when traversing the map at 30 frames per second, it seems weird, you know, it seems unresponsive, and it doesn't really make any sense. Well, I do understand why this game might be locked to 30 frames per second. This game was initially released in 2003, and Japanese games and developers always loved to tie the frame rates to the game physics and behaviors. So this might be one of the games that if the frame rate was unlocked, the game would have issues, and probably that's the reason why the game, it is capped to 30 frames per second. This is a bad PC port. You barely have any graphical options. The game internal resolution, it is capped to 1080p. The game, it is capped to 30 frames per second. So I mean, this looks like a very bare bones port to the PC, and yet they charge you $50 or €50 for the game on Steam. This is a full price game for a game that have almost 20 years old at the moment, where the remaster barely improves anything over the original one. This is completely a cash grab. I don't have any other explanation for this. This is a super cash grab from Atlas or whatever the team or publisher that is behind this decision. This is a super cash grab, and I'm a little bit disappointed because Atlas first, when they did release Persona 4 Golden, the game was costing 20 euros. So I thought it was a nice price, a fair price, because Persona 4, it was old, and yet it is a game that have much more graphical options than Shin Megami Tensei 3. Then came Persona 5 Strikers, and since it's a new game, it made sense for me to pay for the full price for the game. But now Shin Megami Tensei, I think it is an older game than Persona 4, it is a worse port than Persona 4, and yet it costs 50 bucks. So I think they are trying to cash grab a little bit. Don't get me wrong, the game it is excellent, alright, so if you did enjoy Persona, this game, it is more of the same, aside that this game doesn't feature pretty much any social component. So it's a story about the end of the world, and you get transformed into a demon, and you need to fight at the style, Persona style, and you have a backstory about it. But it's not as social or teen-aging or anime style as it is in Persona. So it's a different theme. And in case you are wondering if this is a spin-off of Persona, no, that's quite the opposite. Shin Megami Tensei, it is the original games, Personas are the spin-offs. The thing is, the Persona got more famous over time than Shin Megami Tensei, and so for that reason it is easy to assume that Shin Megami Tensei, it is a spin-off from Persona, but that's not really the case. Persona, it is a spin-off from Shin Megami Tensei. But essentially, you know what you can expect. Even the attacks and some of the creatures are basically the same between Persona and Shin Megami Tensei. It's just the universe and the story behind it. It is completely different. There is no time of day in year like it is on Persona. So it's more focused into the story, and that's about it. And there is no teenaging and social components behind it. So regarding the game, I think the game, it is awesome. Obviously it is super dated. This is a 2003 game, remastered with small improvements. It is a super dated game, and it is super expensive, and it is a super bad port for the PC. And when I claim it is a bad port, I'm not talking about the performance. It's just really the lack of options, the 30 frames per second limits, and the lack of the ability to go above 1080p in its internal rendering resolution. Alright, so guys, I think that's all that I want to talk about Shin Megami Tensei 3, and you can enjoy the rest of the video. I had to remove the music due to copyright strikes, so this might sound a little bit weird to watch these fights anyway, but that's about it. Thank you a lot for watching, and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.